Breaking news out of Gaza. So the Israelis have just rescued 4 hostages out of the heart of Gaza. 3 male, 1 female. Impressive operation. Weeks of planning with the joint operations of the Air Force, the infantry, and all sorts of secret units. That's a huge W for the Israelis. It's a huge W on the morale side. It gives them a big win and a huge boost. But I think it's a big win for the Israelis in more ways than one, in more ways than people initially understand. Now, obviously, it's going to be a very epic success story for the Israelis, and that's great. But on the geopolitical stage, there's a huge deal right now that's being played. Sinwar, which is the leader of Hamas, is trying to essentially blackmail the Israelis into some sort of a hostage release deal that will effectively end the war and keep him alive and effective. Essentially, his fantasy is for the Israelis to leave Gaza and for him to remain the de facto ruler. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen, but that's what his end game is, and it feels like he has all the leverage because he holds more than 100 hostages. Now, so far, the Israelis had very little leverage to push against Sinwar, because essentially what he can tell them is, guys, we've been at this for 8 months. You rescued 1 hostage. Every single hostages that you've gotten, except this one person, is something that we gave you. So you're not going to get any more unless you give us our demands. So by rescuing 4 hostages, the Israelis have now started to push leverage on Sinwar. Now he has to calculate the possibility of losing more hostages to further rescue operations that pushes him closer to a deal that is not a complete BS on the Israeli side. So the Israelis now have leverage. They have now proved that they have the quality of intel and the operational capability of actually taking out hostages alive out of Gaza. Now, what is the next steps here? So you have to pay attention to what's going on right now in Gaza. There's a huge war going on between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. And what happened today does not help the Hamas at all. Now, the Palestinian Authority have vocally criticized Hamas over the past few days on Saudi national TV, essentially saying that the Iranians are using Hamas to bleed out the Palestinian people for Iranian purposes, and purposes that don't move the Palestinian people anywhere closer to their own country, to their own state. Now, that is an open criticism by the PLO, which is now evolved to the Palestinian Authority against Hamas, against the Iranians, and it has been carried out for a number of reasons. Number one, the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, they're trying to brand themselves vis-a-vis the US as a legitimate potential ruler of Gaza in the day after. But more importantly, Abbas, who is the head of the PLO, is trying to leverage the Palestinian street being fed up with the war, rightfully so, right? Nobody likes a war. But after 8 months of war, people are fed up. So he's trying to leverage that and point their anger towards Hamas, saying, hey, Hamas did this to you and it did not progress us in any sort of meaningful way, which is kind of true. So he's making moves against the Hamas, and at the same time, and I'll talk about it in the next video, there's a meeting that was scheduled for next week in China, which is supposed to bring together the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas to some sort of a deal in which Hamas will relinquish control and will come under the umbrella of the PLO for a number of reasons. The PLO, the Palestinian Authority, they have the credibility on the US side, on the international community side, so they are a somewhat respected authority that may get approval from the international community to manage Gaza. Hamas is gone. After October 7th, they're a terror organization. Even their biggest fans, with the exception of perhaps Turkey, Qatar, Iran, China, and Russia, are not going to accept Hamas rule Gaza. So Hamas as a brand is finished. So Hamas needs the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, for that. On the other hand, the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, they don't have the street cred. So you see, the Palestinian street is very, very supportive of Hamas. I know it sounds weird, but Hamas is extremely popular on the Palestinian street, and the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, is extremely unpopular. They're viewed as old, impotent collaborators with Israel, so nobody respects them. So the deal that's being cooked right now in China is that Hamas basically, as a brand, dies. It goes under the umbrella of the PLO, the Palestinian Authority. All the senior guys, Sinwar, Yahya Sinwar, Khaled Mashal, Ismail Hania, all the senior guys, the political bureau gets jobs and gets placements, so they get to keep their nice, cushy life and have some influence. But from now on, everybody, including Hamas, will recognize that the Palestinian Authority is the sole representative and the sole ruler of the Palestinian people. So kind of a win-win organization situation that's being cooked. What happened today, with the Israelis pushing against Sinwar, pushing against Hamas, saying, hey guys, the only leverage you have on us, the hostages, which you thought we could do nothing about, we can actually get hostages alive. So the more you wait, you ain't winning, you're giving us more time to get more hostages out. So they completely just changed the equation, potentially pushing Sinwar and Hamas closer to the surrender agreement with the Palestinian Authority, which would be the effective end of Hamas as a legitimate political organization and a potential ruler of Gaza. So that's the story. Hopefully more news come out from this, and if they are, I'll keep you posted either here on our Patreon, patreon.com/Tom Report. So have a great weekend, and good job, Israelis.